All right, what's going on, guys? If you can hear me clearly, please let me know that you can hear me. If you can hear me clearly, that would be nice. Just let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. Quick audio visual test just to make sure that we're live. If you're watching me on Facebook, please go ahead and share. Share. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead and share if you're watching me on Facebook. If you're watching me on YouTube, go ahead and share, and also make sure you give it a thumbs up. Today, we're talking about how to generate comps, okay? We're talking about how to generate comparables. This is going to be a very important lesson. There are really about 6 factors all in total. There's really about 6 factors all in total, okay? How to generate comps, comparable market analysis. So if you ever hear the word comps, it means comparable, okay? It just we're going to talk about that in a second here. So make sure that you share this to people that you know will want to benefit from this. I don't care if you're watching me live, you're watching me later, either way, it's perfectly fine. All right, if you're one of the 20 people that watches this video on a daily basis, let me just first of all say thank you. You keep me going. It makes me feel excited. It motivates me to keep going. Okay, so today is Data to Deals episode number 16. Okay, so we have about 15 episodes in the past that if you're watching this for the first time, if you're brand new here, you want to make sure you watch all 15 because there's always something in each one of them that doesn't spill over, that you can only get in that one episode. And that's one of the reasons why experience is really one of the greatest things about this business. Okay. All right. So also let you know, I do have a special video premiering right after this at 5 o'clock. Okay. So you want to make sure you get ready to watch that one. It's going to be premiering at 5 o'clock. I'll share that details with you in a little bit. Okay. All right. So how's everyone doing? Everyone back to work? Everyone back to work, to the hustle? Everyone back to the hustle? All right, so let's get started with today. Let's talk about how to generate comps, comparable market analysis. In the agent world, some people call it CMA. CMA may be a little bit different, depends on what market you are in. Here we're talking about real estate investing, right? Real estate money secrets, that's what we're talking about here. We have fun talking about this every day at 4 p.m. All right, so today, this is a big part of it, okay? Basically, the whole idea of, we have a big article coming out on the blog at myEmpirePRO.com. My name is Ola. I'm the author of Smart Real Estate Wholesaling and the creator of myEmpirePRO.com. So we have a big blog post coming out on Tuesday on flipping houses that goes into everything that you need to know about flipping houses. But today you're going to get a little bit taste of what's inside of that article. So like I was saying, this is about flipping houses. It's about flipping houses nationwide from anywhere, as long as you have a laptop and internet connection. That's what we talk about here. Some people call it virtual wholesaling. I call it smart real estate wholesaling. Very, very simple, okay? There's no such thing as non-virtual wholesaling any longer. So the primary skill set that you really need to learn if you're going to focus on acquisition, because there's acquisition and there's disposition, right? If you're going to focus on acquisition side of the business, which is basically finding sellers, okay? Like without sellers, no business, right? There are 3 core pillars of businesses. There's value, there's automation, and there's people, okay? Automation, just you can change that to media if you want, but just keep in mind that we're in 2020, so you want to make sure you're applying leverage as much as humanly possible, okay? You want to make sure that you're doing more, you're doing things faster, with less resources as much as humanly possible. Just like I said in the article that you're gonna get on Tuesday, there's a place for manual work. Sometimes you have to do manual stuff. Like for example, what I'm doing right now, I have to show up here and do this at 4 p.m. on today's date is 28th of May 2020. But the beauty about it is I'm leveraging this platform because more people can watch and watch and watch and watch over again. Okay, so I never really do any work where I cannot apply some kind of leverage. If I can't apply leverage to it, meaning it can't keep paying me long term, I'm probably not going to do it. Okay, unless it's family related, something I do for my family, in which case I benefit from that cumulative long term as well. Emotional energy, they feed my soul, family. That's basically passion, right? That's the reason why I'm here. That's part of my purpose. Okay. So now with that being said, we're talking about real estate investors. The primary skill set that you really, really want to get good at, excuse me, the primary skill set that you really, really want to get good at is learning how to find, there are two things, all in one, learning how to find and identify deals. Okay. Now, finding deals, it's 5-stage process, like I already shared with you, right? But identify a deal is something that you actually have to try to do on the front end. When I say front end, I'm not talking about data. So take 2 steps forward. Data contact. At the lead generation point before you lock in the 4th stage, which is contract, you want to make sure you know how to identify a deal. Okay? And the way to do that is by figuring out what we call after repair value. Okay? So most of the properties we're going to deal with, most of the properties that we can find at a deep discount, which is basically how we make our money, most of those properties are going to need some work. They're going to need some repairs, some upgrade, right? For the most part, on an average, 99% of the time, if you find a pretty house, sometimes you call people, for those of you that cold call, and somebody says, no, nothing is wrong with the house. There's a good chance that you're not going to find a deal there, okay? Because there's no way for you to add value to that person. So with that being said, I talked about repair because we're talking about after repair value, ARV for short. That's what we call it. So how do we find ARV? The process to finding ARV is something you can do pretty quickly. I'm going to share the software with you. If you're here for the first time, towards the end, I'll share that software with you so you can try it out for free for 7 days. But basically, the process is really what's more important. The software is just a tool, but you need to understand the concept. So some of you may want to spend 20 hours on Zillow trying to figure this out, but at least you will understand the concept. So that process is called comparable market analysis. A lot of agents, they're used to that. They have to come up with comparables if they have a potential client, right? A potential client that's about to sell a property, they have to do comparable market analysis so they can know what price point to list the property at, okay? If they have a potential client who's a buyer, they still have to do comparable market analysis so they can know what type of area to look for property for a person, right? How much they can afford, how much the bank has approved them for. So value, right? Real estate is location, 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 location. So I want to share with you 6 things. Take some notes. 6 elements of a marketplace that you really need to pay attention to, okay? Not just pay attention to, you need to pull empirical data, meaning you have to see numbers, okay? For it to make sense to you. You need to bring it down to a science. These 6 things has to come down to a science for you. There are many other things that will not be science, okay? For example, you have to go with your gut feelings. Sometimes you just have to flow with it. Sometimes you just have to feel on it. Sometimes you just have to have a conversation, build rapport. All of that, right? But when it comes down to the ARV, especially if you're a wholesaler, you don't want to be a joke in front of the cash buyers. You want to learn how to process a comparable market analysis, okay? And that's what spits out the output of comparable market analysis is essentially the ARV, okay? There are some factors that are applicable outside of the scope of real estate investing. I'm not going to touch on those. I'm going to stay strictly on if you're about to be investing, you want to fix and flip, right? You want to know how to analyze the market and see it for what it is and just take it as that and understand that you don't have to get stuck on that deal if it doesn't pass the number. Is that making sense? All right. So here's a quick, a little quiz thing that we want to do. I will, I want to see where you guys' mind are. If you're looking at the marketplace, what is the number one factor? Okay, it's probably my number one too. Okay, but I want to see if you have an idea. Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, what is the number one thing you have to look at when you are assessing the value of real estate, of a piece of real estate? What is the number one thing that you would look at? If you don't mind, please go ahead and interact with me. For those 5 of you that are watching me right now, what is the number one thing that you would look at if you were looking at a piece of real estate? What is the number one thing that comes to mind for you? Okay, it's a little bit of a delay here, maybe about 2 minutes delay, but by now you should have heard me. Give me one word, maximum 2 words. The first thing that you look for when you're looking at a piece of property, okay? When you're looking at a piece of property and you're looking to determine the value of it, right? Remember what I said is about finding, but more importantly, identifying a deal. What is a deal? That means something that we're making money up front when we're locking a contract, when we put an offer in and we're locking a contract at a purchase price, right? What is that one thing that you would look at? It's okay. Don't be afraid to be the first. At least not on this platform. What is the number one thing you would look like? I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. There's a, if you've ever presented a deal to a cash buyer, that means the person that's going to actually pay for the property and pay you an assignment fees for finding the deal, right? And they don't even respond, right? That's even the worst, right? Sometimes they respond, they say, that's not a deal, right? And sometimes they go, yeah, they're just going to disregard that. For me personally, most of the deals that come across my table, I disregard. I don't respond because there's a lot of them, and a lot of them generally don't make sense. Okay. And some of the clients that I've gotten over time are people that, quote unquote, were trying to be investors, and they locked in a deal, but the deal became bad because it wasn't a deal. They just bought it. They got excited. They took somebody's words for it when it comes to the ARV, the value of the property, right? They took somebody's word for it when it comes to the value of the property. And they got into it. They wanted to fix and flip. When it came down to the marketplace, when it was time to sell, they had trouble selling. They couldn't sell because they were wrong with the value. All right. Thank you for that, Grant. Sorry, Don. Thank you for that. Location is absolutely right. That's location. All right. Now, I need to explain this to you because a lot of people hear location. They hear that from other people. It's like a saying, right? It's location. But when it comes to comparables, the way we look at it is distance. We need to look at how far from the subject property. So we're usually in the market because we're assessing a particular property, right? So if you're looking at comps simply means other properties that are comparable to that same property, okay? Able, at the end of that word, able. That means it's not just because you can compare, it doesn't mean it's comparable. Does that make sense? It has to be comparable with respect to the market, with everyone. Like if you talk to an average cash buyer, they will say, yeah, you're right, that's comparable, right? So there are multiple factors that determine it's comparable. Well, the first one on that list is distance from the subject property. We call it location. But many people don't know the extent to how serious this is, okay? Sometimes my heritage, I was raised in Nigeria, right? I'm a Nigerian by identification, right? And, I see people sometimes say, oh yeah, for the same amount of money, you can get two times the size of that house. Like some people will come to New Jersey, they look at a Cape Cod, right? And they go, you pay $250,000 for that? And you're waiting like, okay, yes. And say, oh man, $250,000 will get you 5 times a bigger mansion than that, and that's not even a mansion. That's like a cave, right? And that's because when people talk like that, they haven't really. And then when they come into real estate, they actually exercise the same thing. Like it shows up in all kind of different ways in their conversation. The truth of the matter is that if you're talking to me and you say there's a house in South Africa, and you say there's another house in Italy, and automatically at the back of my brain, maybe because of my experience, so I'm not trying to toot my own horn, basically because automatically they're not comparable. Okay, it's two different things, two different locations. I'm not comparing a property in New York City, a condo in the middle of New York City, to a bigger mansion in the middle of Alabama. I'm not doing that. It doesn't make sense from a real estate standpoint. So it goes deeper than just location, the slogan. No, you have to embody this. You have to think, not think, you have to literally breathe. If somebody wakes you up from your dream and they ask you like, oh yeah, I got this house and I got this other house, and they didn't even tell you where these houses are, right? You want to be able to say, where are they located? That should be your first question, period. Like, that's because your brain goes there straight. It's the first place your brain goes to. Where are they located? So they show you two pieces of property, right? One is a condo, luxury condo, and the other one is a luxury mansion. And they say, how much would you pay for this? How much would you pay for this? The first question is like, where are they? Where are these houses? Is it in the middle of Africa somewhere? Or it's in the middle of Bali somewhere, in the middle of the ocean? Where's the location? That should be the first thing that should come to mind, okay? Yes, we use PropStream, okay? We use some other services because we do bulk stuff obviously here, but if you're starting off for the first time, PropStream is where you want to be at. But if you have any questions, please post them. I will address them at the end, okay? So thank you so much, Don, for that. We're talking today about how to generate comps. Anytime you're looking at the value of a piece of property, the first question that should come to your mind is, where is it located? All right, there are people, I know people that when you ask them, what's the most famous slogan in real estate, they say location, location, location. And then when you ask them, what's the value of this property, they're asking you like, what's the size? Like, no, like that's not the first question. That's not the first question, okay? Speaking of sizes, let's go on to the second factor that determines the value of a property. Anybody want to guess before I pull it out? Anybody want to give it a shot? Anybody want to give it a shot? What's the second thing that you're looking at? If you're looking at a piece of property, you want to determine the value. The second thing you're looking at, or let me say the second attributes of the properties, right? The comparables that you're comparing with each other. What's the second attribute that you're comparing with each other? Okay. Let me share my screen here real quickly, because I'm going to be sharing some screen here later, because we have an example that we will go through and look at. All right. Let's see here. Anybody want to give it a shot? Give it a shot. Try it out. See. Okay. All right. So the second attribute that we look at when we're comparing comparables in a market analysis is the square footage, the size. I said size, right? That's the second thing you need to look at. So if I'm going to tell you the different possibilities here, okay? For the most part, in the United States, in developed countries, right? If you look at a block of a street, right? The houses are about the same sizes generally. You know why they do that? Because it just makes sense for proper valuation, and obviously for cost reasons, and then obviously time, right? When you're building a new development, it costs a lot less to build 10 properties on a block, same sizes, everything, than it is to build different sizes, okay? So that's a real reason right there why you will see that most times you will see properties about the same size, unless there's changes going on in the neighborhood. And then sometimes you see like a Cape Cod that people will have a new level at the top of it, or they had square footage in the back of it, and people are extending their properties out because there's property. But even if you look at the way that they cut the lands, they usually come in about the same sizes on an average, not always, but on an average, okay? So The livable area, specifically speaking, is number one. Okay, that's always number one. But also the lot size, it is a factor. Okay, but generally speaking, for the most part, you won't have to worry about that. The only time you have to worry about lot size is if somebody is looking for a potential uh, added value things that they can do to the property. Okay, that's the only time you have to worry about that. But for the most part, it's about the same size, but it's not always true. It's not always true. Remember the first attribute that we look at is distance, right? Proximity to the subject property, to the properties you're trying to compare together, right? So if it's within 1 mile radius, that's my favorite, 1 mile radius. Why? That's just because of what I'm used to. Okay, there's no real reason behind that. But 1 mile radius, depending on what part of the country you're dealing with, sometimes you may have gotten a deal, but 0.5 to 1 mile radius is perfect. No more than 1 mile radius. If you have to go more than 1 mile radius to find a comparable for your property, first of all, it's going to be harder for a bank to finance the deal. Okay, it's going to be harder for an investor to say, "Oh yeah, that value is worth it." Right? It's just going to be that much harder. Okay. All right. So, is that making sense, guys? So you don't want to just size. Sometimes when you go to 1 mile radius, it's beyond that same street, and then sometimes there's a property right next block, and it's just a lot more bigger. Okay. Maybe not so much bigger, but a lot more bigger. But the second attribute here is the size, the square footage of the livable area of the property. Okay, guys, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you're watching it live or you're watching the recording later. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. All right, so now let's go to the third one. Okay, anybody want to guess what the third one is? Anybody want to guess what the third attribute is? So I haven't given you any hints. So let's see if somebody can guess. I gave you a hint earlier. Let's see if anybody can guess what the third attribute is. Let's do that, guys. Come on. Don, Aaron, what is the third attribute that comes to mind for you? Waiting. What's the third thing that comes to mind? There's a cheat sheet. There's a cheat sheet in front of you guys, so feel free to use it. Okay. Let me see here. The sale date range. All right, the sale date range is the first thing that comes to mind. Excuse me, guys. I'm live. What do you want? I'm live.
I think you can approve.
Okay, wait for your mommy. Bye. All right. Sales date range. What does that mean? Okay, so here's a reason why. First of all, the banks. The banks are part of the reasons why the value of a particular location drives very high. Okay, they drive because the more institutional money comes into a neighborhood, as in terms of using them to buy houses, the more the value drives up. Because an average human being does not have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to buy a house. The reason why they come into your neighborhood to buy a house is because the bank gave them money, and that creates additional demand. That's why other people's money is not something you get to frown at if you're in the game of real estate. You don't get to frown at, I don't like debts. I don't like taking on debt. You don't get to say that. Okay. First of all, personal debt is completely different things from purchasing power. Okay, purchasing power for an asset. Okay, so yes, real estate is still an asset, especially if it's producing cash flow, right? So if it's going to increase in value over time, which real estate has proven that, obviously we're not getting to that conversation, right? Then the bank is interested in how much money they can extract out of it, and then in order to do that, they need more people to take more interest in property, in property valuation, property interest, property equity, and stuff like that. The more people that are moving more money, the more money is being moved, the more money they get to make over time. Does that make sense? So when the bank comes in, the bank they obviously want to know the value of the property, right? So when you're dealing with a mortgage finance, they do what they call a certified appraiser, right, of the property, right? So they go a little bit more in depth beyond just what I'm sharing with you here today, but usually it's good enough. What I'm sharing with you is good enough to determine upfront, so you don't have to pay $300, $500 for a certified appraiser in order to know the value of a property. You can literally go into your own software, look at a few pieces of data, and determine what a piece of property is worth. Is that making sense? All right. So now, with that being said, the bank is not going to go back and say this property sold 10 years ago at $500,000, so it must be worth $500,000. No, that's not necessarily true. Okay, it's not necessarily true. The market could have crashed. Okay, so now the further into the past that the bank goes, the more invalid the number you come up with is. And the bank is not in the game of losing money. So they're not going to speculate with you. The further into the past, as far as the sales comparables, right, that you use, right? Is it a listing? Is it a sold property? Whatever comparable you're comparing to the property, right? The further into the past you go, the more invalid the number you have is. But the closer to more recent, if a property sold yesterday for $500,000 in that neighborhood, you know that that property is still, it's a higher chance that property is still worth $500,000, right? As compared to if it sold 7 months ago at $500,000, right? So if it sold 2 years ago at $700,000, it could be worth more, it could be worth less, but the bottom line is that that particular number is not relevant. It's suddenly not as relevant as if it had sold yesterday. So the sales range that we typically use in the market that I operate in is 6 months, okay? Most banks will accept 6 months. If there's a serious market crisis going on, the bank would tighten that up to 3 months sometimes. They said, no, we need sales within 3 months to say this property is worth $200,000. So by the way, they're going to average 3 properties together, the attributes of 3 properties, weighted average. They're going to weight them, right? Average them together. Whatever that number is, part of that number is the sales and listings into the past. Clearly, maybe we just woke up today and we're doing a assessment of what a property is worth, right? If it's sold today, great, but maybe not, no sales yet today, right? Maybe not recorded yet, right? So we have to go into the past. The point of this is how far into the past you go. So keep in mind, 6 months is the magic number. Some markets, depending on how much moving, the speed of money in that market, right? If it's a very competitive market and houses are selling like that, the banks get more confident. There's more confidence in the marketplace, right? That means there's more greed in the marketplace. And the bank will say, yeah, just give me a comp from 1 year ago. That's fine. Because they're willing to give money out. Because you know what? Because they can also get that money back just as fast. Does that make sense? But when the market is tight, when the market is tight, then you have to get conservative, right? Not only just you, also the guys at the bank. Remember the guys that are underwriting these loans at the bank. Remember that they're just people like you. They're just on a salary. So they're following a guideline. So there's a certain number of sales dates, how many months into the past they can go when it comes to the sales date range in order to underwrite your loan and approve it. If it goes too far into the past, they're going to look at it. They will look at it with other factors, say, nah, it's too much of a risky loan. We're not going to do it. But your comps are bad. You give me a comps from like 2 years ago. That's not valid. That's irrelevant. Sometimes people will come to you, like you see homeowners come to you and say, I'm not giving you that house for $200,000. I bought it for $300,000 4 years ago. It should be worth more. Now, between you and I, we know it's not necessarily worth more. Okay? By the way, guys, we're missing 1 thumbs up. Please give me 1 more thumbs up and I will go hard for the next few more minutes, okay? All right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's a, between you and I, we know that that property is not, it was what, yes, $700,000 4 years ago. Could it be worth $700,000 right now? Yeah, sure, but we don't know, okay? We don't necessarily know that until we do the evaluation, until we do a market analysis, and then we have to look at now how far into the past we look. I'll tell you right now, the last sales price of the property itself is completely irrelevant, okay? Anything beyond 1 year into the past, especially if you're hoping that you can flip this house in the nearest future, it's going to be irrelevant. The more closer to today from the past you are, the more relevant your numbers are. Now, let's keep something in mind. Doing a comparable market analysis and coming up with the value of a property is an opinion. At some point, when you're dealing with an agent, they start calling it a professional opinion, right? when you start dealing with a certified appraiser, it's still called an opinion. It's just a certified professional opinion. It's still an opinion. It can vary from people to vary, but it cannot vary too far. So, for example, if I was an investor, I'm looking at a property to buy from you, you can't say, oh, yeah, but my opinion. No, well, it needs to align with my opinion too, because I'm the one that's spitting out the cash, right? We're going to be using my money to buy this property. So it needs to align with the market, right? And that's why we use averages, but not just averages. You can't just go on Zillow and pull up sales prices in that city and average it and say this is the value of the property. It doesn't work like that. Okay, it just doesn't. The fourth factor here is this, okay? If you are a real estate investor, you're in real estate wholesaling, right? Meaning your business, your money is created when you buy. You cannot afford to look at listings, like active listings as comparables. You can't, you just can't, okay? You have to look at sold. The listing status has to be sold, okay? Because it's reality, it's something that already happened, okay? Listing is speculative. Anyone can list their property at any price. Doesn't mean they're gonna get that price, okay? They may be overly excited, they may be under excited, we don't know. Bottom line is that that sales price is not fact, it's speculative, okay? Now, they may have marked that sale price based on what they saw in the market, but again, it's still not fact, okay? So we always go with sold comparables when it comes to the game of real estate wholesaling, flipping houses, real estate investing. You always go, even if you're doing subject to, okay? Some of you guys don't know what subject to. By the way, if you want me to cover subject to later on, subject to type of deals, leads with an option, rent to own. If you want me to cover that, say that in the comment area and I will see what I can do about that, okay? Property class. Let's go to property class. What's property class? Okay, we want to make sure that this is residential. If you're in fact comparing a residential, which you should be, if you're here, we're talking about residential properties. Why? Because volume and speed that you can flip houses is a lot faster with residential. For the same reason I shared earlier, the banks give money to a lot more people in the population are buying residential properties. Why? Because it's basic needs. Shelter, especially now that everyone is working from home. People need offices at home. People need a space where their kids can learn from home and things like that. All right, making sense? All right, so the property class needs to be residential. You want to make sure that you lock that in on residential. So if we go here on my screen right here and we look at this one, let's see, property class, residential, you see there are multiple different classes: commercial, office building, commercial building, it could be like warehouses and stuff like that, office building, you know what those look like, all right? Industrial, that's more like warehouses, but more like around like tanks, oil tanks and stuff like that. That's industrial, right? Like areas where you will see like junkyards and stuff like that, right? Agricultural, like around the farm, right? Those are different property classes, right? If you have a little bit of a cave, what do you call it? A cave in the middle of a farm somewhere, and you're trying to compare it with a real house, right? That's not going to work, right? And if you're in the middle of a farm, then you have to, again, they have to do the analysis properly, okay? Recreational, like if your building is like an event hall or something like that, right? Or like a park or something like that. You're not going to be comparing it to a house, like a building in the middle of a park, right? Transportation, right? Exempt, vacant land. You have to do those assessments a little bit different. Now, there's some exceptions to vacant land. It could be a vacant land in the middle of nowhere. Excuse me, guys. Maybe all of my dear, okay. All right. So that's property class. Now, the next one on our list, number 6, last but not least, when it comes to comparables, before I actually go show you how I'm going to assess this particular property in front of us, is property type. Okay. There's obviously one should pick the structure, the way the building is structured, and the functionality of the building itself, right? So sometimes you have single family, right? Property class is more functional, right? Property type is more of how it is used. So for example, single family, multi-family, that's based on sizes and stuff like that. Now, condo is a community building, right? And then again, you still see all these different ones. It's just additional ways to break down different types of properties, right? This is more of a high level classification, and this is more of a low level classification, all right? So for us, with the business that we do, we fix and flip houses, okay? Sometimes we just flip the house without fixing it. Some people call it wholesaling, right? Some people hotel, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, you have a lot more volume when you're dealing with single family and multi-family up to 4 family. That's what I deal with personally. That's my preference, okay? I don't do condos when it comes to marketing, okay? But again, it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of preference. And you do whatever, maybe your expertise at condos for, you know how to deal with homeowners association and things like that. I rather not, okay? So that's the 6. Those are the 6 attributes, okay? So let's go over them really quickly, and then I'm going to do a comp right in front of you right now, and then I'm going to tell you what my opinion of the value is, and that's it. And that's it. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to come up with an offer that I'm willing to give, and how the offer may be a little bit different, you know. So I try to come up with 2 different offers when I'm about to put an offer on a property. One is an offer for quick cash. You want quick cash, you want to close 7 days after clear title. I have a price for that. You need some more money and stuff like that. We have that's a different ball game entirely. And I'm going to show you an idea of what that looks like. Okay. So to recap, distance. Okay. Number 2, square footage, the size of the property, of the livable area, not just a big old lot. A big old lot also accounts for something, but it's usually the exception. And if your property has a big old lot, it's a plus for you. So if the lot is too tight, if you just look at the livable area, that's usually good enough, unless you're looking at things like how the level, how the square footage, how the room, you want to add to the square footage, make the house a little bit bigger, then you will need some space to do that. That's additional assessment that you have to do for that deal, right? No one is doing that kind of stuff, right? Like most people are shying away from that right now because there's no confidence in the marketplace. So you want to assess and evaluate the property assets the way it is. Don't take additional risk. And if you do, no one's going to buy the contract from you, okay? And if you do, and you're the one that's actually going to flip it, you're basically speculating. Could you make money? Yes, you could. But you could also lose a lot of money if you're speculating too far right now, okay? The third thing is sales date range. Right now, you want to keep it at 6 months, not 1 year, 6 months, okay? And you may even come back, a cash buyer may tell you, no, I'm not looking at 6 months. I need comparables within the last 3 months. If they're very conservative, they are conservative. But for me right now, I'm keeping it at 6 months. If a cash buyer doesn't like that, they can, you know, at least they will have a conversation with me and we'll see about maybe possibly renegotiating with a seller or something like that. There's always options, okay? Number 4, it needs to be a sold property. All your comparables must be a sold property. Don't use active listings on the market. I've heard people tell me before say, yeah, you know, I'm using an active listing on the market because I called the agents and the agents told me they received about 3 people that are interested in it. I don't know what all those things mean. That's all speculative, right? So property classes, you want to make sure it's residential. Property type, you want to make sure that it's 1 family up to 4 family properties. Keep it that simple. So with that being said, okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and show you some example of what that looks like, okay? So on this property, we're going to go look at distance first, right? Let me minimize that. This is the software that I'm using, just in case you're wondering. You can find it at empirepbigdata.com. It's called PropStream, okay? It's probably the most popular right now because of the ease of using it, okay? But you can try it out for 7 days for free. That's empirepbigdata.com. So let's go on this screen. Okay, so the first thing I do is instead of 0.5 here, I can go as far as 1 mile radius. That's fine for me, okay? So again, you may be in your market, they may say it's a little bit different, okay? I use MLS here. If you need more sales comparable, you really shouldn't, because you should be on the conservative side, okay? Because you're a buyer essentially, so you should be on the conservative. So just picking MLS here and not both. You can pick both, but it will create duplicate on this list, okay? So 1 mile radius, okay? I don't touch the square footage. I really don't. Okay. The reason why I don't is because remember what I said earlier. Most neighborhoods has like the same type of houses. Okay. If there's an exception, I will see it at some point and I will reevaluate, right? But generally, I don't even touch the square footage because most of the houses that will come within 1 mile radius are probably about the same size. So if you look at this list right here, if I go to the column with the square footage, you can see here that this property is 1200, it's 1300 here, 1200, 1100. It's about the same. So basically plus or minus 200 square feet. Okay, there's a small one here, right? But really, you will see that it's not going to matter in a second. Okay, all right. So that's the first one. So we do distance, square footage. I don't really bother too much. Now let's talk about sales date range. I don't go further than 6 months into the past. As you can see, it defaults to 1 year. So I'm going to push this month with this arrow back 6 months closer to us, okay, into the future. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's November 28th. Perfectly fine. And you will see the list of comparable sales will reduce, okay? Look at that. So that reduced dramatically, okay? That means we have less property to work with, but that's fine. But again, within 1 mile radius, this doesn't look too bad to me, okay? If I have anything less than 5 here, then I got a problem. That means properties are not moving within 1 mile radius of that property. And that's just going to be make it that much difficult to sell the deal, okay? Just so you know, it's going to make it that much difficult to sell the deal because there's no sales in that area, means there's no action. So investors don't want to go in there into that neighborhood if there's no actions. Now, there will be sometimes, depending on the neighborhood or the locality of the neighborhood, some investor will say, I know that area, usually houses are dispersed apart, right? It's a little bit of a rural area, right? The investors will tell you that you work with what you got. So there might be some exceptions to the rule. For the most part, you shouldn't have to, okay? So that's that. So we went 6 months, right? So we're now on number 3, sales date range, 6 months. Now let's go into market listing status. We always make sure this is sold. You do have the options to turn on active. If I turn it on, you'll see the list increase. I don't want active listings, okay? I just don't want active listings, okay? Let's see. See, there's more on the listings now because there's some active, MLS active, okay? And if you look at this active listings, sometimes you see there's an active listing here at $619,000. It doesn't tell me the reality. The average of all the comparables I'm looking at right now is $347,000. But yet there's somebody trying to sell a property for $619,000. Are they delusional? Not necessarily. It may just be a very brand new house. Again, I'm not looking into that details unless I have to, okay? It may be a bigger house. It may be a brand new construction. Who knows, right? So they may rightfully be asking for a lot more money, but they're going to have a hard time. Why? Because everything in that area is less price, okay? It's actually the highest. And the lowest next to, the closest lowest is $409,000. That's not a good look for that 619. But if it's well presented, they may be able to sell it. You just never know. It could be a brand new construction. But again, the idea here is we are the investor. We don't want to take too much risk, speculative risk on too early. So, like I said, only sold. But let's look at something real quick. You may want to see all the properties that failed in listing in that area in the last 6 months. And you just turn on fail, right? So a property was listed at 342 here. It was on the market for 61 days and it expired. Well, this one says fail after 1 day. It's probably a mistake error, right? Also, it's in a different city. So if a city is right next to each other, like for example, Edison and Highland Park are right next to each other here in New Jersey. So I know that area. Sometimes you see them on the cards because it's literally within 1 mile radius. But you want to keep your comps within the same city. That's another really nice attribute you want to write down on the side in your note. It has to be in the same city, okay? Most underwriters, cash buyers will require that the comps that you're using is in the same city. It doesn't matter if it's 0.1 mile away. It doesn't matter if it's on the border. They want comparables in the same city because when a real buyer is about to actually buy on the retail side of things, they will look at what city are we in, okay? Now there's some what do you call them? There's some exceptions. There's a property the other day that I stumbled into, and that property was actually sitting on 3 cities. It was on a border, and actually, per the real estate record at the county, it says 3 cities. Okay, so there's some weird stuff like that here in New Jersey. Sometimes you just want to know, like, oh wow, that's weird. It's just on the border. So for different reasons, it will fall in different parts of the town. So they may say, hey, for water, this is Edison. For electricity, this is considered Metuchen. For there are exceptions like that. Okay. So again, the whole point of this is status must be sold. Okay, we want it to be sold, and we can see that all the cities are the same here. So we look good so far. Okay. Let's go here. What else? Property class, right? Property class. The last one we looked at. Okay, so property class, we want to make sure that this is residential. So then on that list, you may have had a office building or something like that. I can see here already in this column that they're all already single family residential, but I just keep it on just in case. So property type, we took care of that already. All right. So now, what is the value of this property after all of that? After all of that. Now, if I had more properties on this list, which I do, I'm looking for 5 comparables. That's me. Okay. You only really need 3. Okay. But I tend to be conservative when I'm looking at these numbers because I don't like the stories and the dramas from a cash buyer who thinks, oh yeah, but that's not comparable. I like to give them 5 comparables because I don't want the stories. Either you like the property or you don't, and please keep it moving if you don't like it. So I like to give them 5, basically over deliver when it comes to the valuation of the property, right? The subject property. So if I was to make an offer on this property today, I'm supposed to have up to 20 if it was a very active market, but you know what happened in the past few months, right? So that's probably a good reason why there's less sales, right? Multiple reasons. Less inventories. There's no inventory in the market. No one is willing to move away from the property. Not right now, right? But there may be a vacant property in the area. You never know, right? But anyway, I already set the criteria, right? So we're looking at this. This value is telling me 312 already based on all 6 properties, right? So if I had 20, if there was enough sales on this, it would basically average everything based on square footage and give me based on 20. But I don't need 20. I don't need 6 either. So I'm going to look for the top. Again, this is my time that I get to be a little bit excited with how I evaluate this, right? So I'm going to look for my top price per square footage. Why price per square footage? Anyone want to help me real quick? Why price per square footage, guys? Why price per square footage? Why would I use price per square footage here, this column, and not this column, which is amount, the sales price, right? So I could go and say, hey, $4,000, right? So I could go here, I'll take the last one off. The lowest here is 235, right? I'm looking for the highest, at this point, I'm looking for the highest potential sales price for the property. That's what I'm looking at, right? I have 2 choices, right? But I am going to take this one out. I only need 5, right? And that gives me 328. When I leave that one on, you see that it's 312, right? When I take that out, I only need 5, right? I'm going to take that one out. So I'm looking at 328, right? Now I could do that, or I could, again, I could take all that out. I'll go to price per square footage and click on the column header to sort it from high to low. You click on it twice, right? And so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna select all and take the last one out. So this one has $208 dollars per square footage, right? But I'm looking for the highest potential. So I'm gonna pick the first 5, right? And that gives me pretty much the same price. But many times, if you had more on this list, it won't necessarily be the same price, right? Now I have $328,000, and the average price per square footage is $276. Now, why do I prefer on a regular day? I prefer price per square footage. Anyone want to guess? Why? Come on, guys. Come on, talk to me. It's like pulling teeth. Getting you guys to talk is like pulling teeth. I know some of you are listening in the background, but why do I prefer? By the way, feel free to participate if you're watching this recording later too. Okay, why do I prefer to use the price per square footage as opposed to using the sales price? Because if I had more on that list, it would be a lot more different. Why? 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 Anyone know why? I know you got to think about it, right? I get it. Got to think about it. Don't forget to join the private group on Facebook, by the way. Just go to Facebook and type in D2D Nation. D2D Nation. That's where you want to go. Let's see. Guys, can you please give me that thumbs up, the last one? Can I get that last 50 thumbs up? Thank you so much. We're missing one. Today's goal is 5. All right. Just go to type in D2D Nation on Facebook. And as a matter of fact, let me see if that works. Because last time I checked, Nation, D2D Nation. And search for that on Facebook. So if you search for it, you will see there's 11 members in the group. If you want to join that group, feel free to join the group. All right. What else? If you want that software that I've been using, that's it right there, EmpireBigData.com. I'm waiting for you guys to give me the answer. Why am I using price per square footage and not the sales price? Right? I need 5 comparables. 6 came up. Okay. But I need 5 comparables. I'm going to create an offer based on 328. How do I create an offer based on 328? How do I do that? Let's see here. EmpireBigData.com. You're not sure. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm just going to give you guys that as homework. You know, why price per square footage? Why not sales price? I'm going to give you that as a homework. Okay. So this property, I haven't, depending, I'm going to go to, let's see. Sorry, my screen is acting up here. I'm going to go to dealestimator.com. Dealestimator.com. Okay, it's a free tool. All right, let's see here. Let me make sure I share that with you guys so you guys can have it handy. Okay, dealestimator.com is where I'm going to go, and I'll click on maximum allowable for cash offers. This is how I'm going to determine my first offer. Okay, you can use this very easily. Okay, by the way, there's a link to Empire Big Data there if you need comparables. You need to have the after repair value before you can do this. Okay, before you can use this calculator, right? So as a wholesaler, use the 65% rule. If you're an investor that you're going to actually buy this property and fix and flip, use the 70% rule. The spread between 65 and 70% rule is your wholesale fee if you're a wholesaler. Okay, keep it that simple. Okay, keep it that simple. So the size of your deal is based on how big the size of the deal is. It's that simple. Don't tell anyone that you're making 5% commission because it's not a commission. Okay, it's not. Okay, just letting you know that right now. So we're gonna put $328,000 here, right? And we're gonna dive into. So let's just assume this needs 5%. That this needs a small rehab. Probably this property is gonna need a little bit more than small rehab. So I'm just gonna do medium rehab. So I want to spend about $50,000 on the property, $40,000, give or take, right? And that tells me that my offer is going to be at around $160,000. Okay, my offer is going to be at $160,000. Potential. By the way, if you scroll down to the bottom, it tells you potential wholesale assignment fee you can make from that. Okay, if you basically flip this property to someone else. Okay, $97,000 potential gross investor. They can make that kind of money. Okay, net $75,000. I use algorithms based on my past experience to create this. Okay, but that's some real stuff right there for you to use. The other offer that I like to create is basically an offer based on, if they say no, I can't take that, I say, okay, do you need how much cash exactly do you need? If they say, oh, if I keep you in the deal and I'm able to take over your finances and take over the property, how much do you need? Well, I need $20,000 to take care of a debt right now. If I give you $20,000 right now, will you sign the property over to me? And then when I do sell the property later in the future, I will give you the rest of the money. If they say yes, then I'll go back. I have a calculator that I use for that. And I will structure something where we can Basically partner with them. We'll bring in the money that they need. We'll bring in the repair cost. We need to fix up the property. Then we will basically sell the property to a rent to own person that will put down a deposit. It's a very big deposit. So rent to home prospects are usually people that don't have good credit, but they need a home. There's going to be a lot of those right now because again, well, it depends on where you are, but in New Jersey here, it's going to be a lot of those because people are running away from the city. They need a home. They need a place to feel safe, and that's the possibilities. But that conversation does not come up unless they say $160,000 is a bad offer. If they say 160,000 is a bad offer, I just want to say, okay, so tell me what you're looking for. They'll tell me what the price, the minimum they're looking for. I need to find out the lowest they can go. Then I'll present a different type of structure. Remember that you're creating a solution. Okay, that's basically what you're doing. You're creating a solution for them. So you need to find out what they need, how you can help them, how you can get them to move forward. If they're not desperate, if they're not a desperate seller, the conversation will be short-lived and it's not even worth it. And it's probably for the best. So you can move on to the next lead as fast as humanly possible. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Krishana, thank you for stopping by again. Aaron, thank you. Deal Engineer, thank you. Who else? I can't see. Okay, Don, thank you so much. We'll be back here on Monday, 4 p.m. We'll be back here for the 17th episode on Monday. Go ahead and watch the rest of the all the episodes. Just try to watch everything because there's stuff that you're probably missing in there. Watch all the episode. By the way, I have a video that's premiering right now as we speak right now. It's called Chat with LD, the Don from Music to a Real Estate Empire. It's a very nice story. He's telling us everything he's doing and why he left the music industry. Go check it out right now. Talk soon. Bye now.